You ready to do this thing? Come on. Come on, we'll do this thing.
This is really funny. Really funny. What do you mean I'm funny? It's funny, you know. It's a good story. It's funny. You're a funny guy.
Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't. Quality, quantity, and variety. Making up the rules as we go along.
I cut out the old rock flux there. Yeah.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Okay.
Good morning, folks. It's 4:48 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to call this the early show. I mean, if anything qualifies for this.
This is insane.
I mean, yeah. This is insane. Anyway.
Good morning.
Here we go again. So, today's show, I just could not sleep. And thus, I am here. Thus spake Zarathustra. The name of this show is, and I like it like that, is You Don't Know What You Don't Know. And I am half awake. Literally half awake. I just rolled out of bed. I've been up since like 1, 3, I don't know. I mean, I just couldn't get back to sleep, and I was having some weird dream about, getting something for somebody or something ridiculous like that. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, let's take a look at the title card. And you don't know what you don't know, and this guy looking at what some people call the dark side of the moon, but actually it's just the far side of the moon. It's one of those other mysteries, that astrophysicists have an explanation for. It's like Cruithne, that's the Earth's second moon, so to speak, that's never really talked about. And the average person, you'd say, Earth's second moon? There's this other object that's basically almost, it's on the same plane, rotational, whatever, as us. It's kind of our second moon. It's been there forever. But anyway, the dark side or far side of the moon always faces the sun. So, I mean, not always faces the sun, but always faces away from the Earth. So technically, it gets the sun when it's facing the sun. So, anyway, I start on a more serious note like that. I don't even know why I did that. This is insane. Yeah.
This is insane.
It's one of those things you almost want to put that thing itself on a loop, but I'd probably get somebody to copyright hit because it'd be played so much, or somebody else already did it in some stupid thing, that's how people are. I've gotten copyright hits for my own songs and for some, kid DJs who used some classic things that I'd like to use, like I'm mad as hell and I don't want to take it anymore. Somehow they used it in a song, not a song, but in some DJ mashup mix, whatever. And it was really crappy, and the two of them were goofballs. They probably only made one YouTube video, and I got, I got a hassle for it. So it's, it's crazy. So what is today anyway? It's Monday. That's right. Doctor's appointment. I have a doctor's appointment in less than. I get picked up by a med van in less than 4 hours. Not even. Let's see. 3. They say 8:15, so 7.5 hours. So.
The Weather Watch forecast.
The weather watch right now is 61 degrees outside of this studio. The high today is supposed to be 82 degrees, and it's saying partly sunny or partly cloudy. Your guess. Glass half full, glass half empty. Yesterday, it was supposed to be sunny. And I was hoping that when I get back from this doctor's appointment, I'd be able to go out in the backyard, just lay down in the lounge chair, and soak up some sun for a good half hour. And because I'm up so early right now, I'd be able to just take a nap in the sun and get a sunburn. Because I haven't been out in the sun in days because it's been raining or there's been the threat of rain. Tomorrow now they push back. It's supposed to be all sunny, 84. But the overnights this week are in the low 60s, even getting down to 55 on Wednesday. So that's the
Weather Watch forecast.
And for some reason, the CPU's running up in the 7s today for some unknown reason, though I don't have any extra apps open or anything weird like that. So I don't know. So let's just hope that's not a harbinger of things to come. The morning show mug. Mostly Faygo, but I'm just about to add some Dr. Pepper. I put a boatload of ice cubes in there, or a mug load. That's not to say that I may not have to leave the premises to grab some extra ice cubes. Look at all that stuff in the background. Right? The old radio, transistor radio, my book Codex, right there. That's a transistor radio people used to have on the beach. This time of year, you'd be out and the sun would be on, and then some sexy girl would come on and go, "It's time to turn over," so you wouldn't burn yourself. An old AM radio, desktop, bedside, or kitchen AM radio, tube radio with the tubes on top of it. A phone from the 60s, still works. My cat's gone. Upstairs hiding, I think. Come back down. Let me see. He knocked something over early on, and he took a mad dash. But then he did come down and get some food because he didn't want to miss out on that breakfast thing. But then he ran back upstairs. He's tired. I should see. The thing is, I knew that if I stayed in bed, rolled over, and maybe tried to go back to sleep, I probably would have slept till close to 7 or so. And then this show would not have gotten done because I had this appointment first thing in the morning. So here I am, the early show, the morning show, the early show. And let's go through some of our, here's our daily image for the day. Mr. Giovanni, otherwise known as Leonardo da Vinci. Da Vinci. You know, we've talked about Da Vinci a couple of times, and the idea was a mind like that is proof that there's no need for the technocracy and AI. Because if we were to pursue the ability of people like that, like Da Vinci, you know, even Einstein, even though I disagree with a lot of Einstein stuff. I mean, the point of the matter is, you know, Da Vinci. You know, I'd like to have a Da Vinci hat. In fact, if I had a Da Vinci hat, no glasses, and that beard, I could almost look like him. You're saying, no, you won't. Your nose is too big. What do you know? Food and garden. It's a picture I took yesterday in my backyard. These are zinnias. I planted those from seeds. And I have some on my front porch, some on, like in my porch boxes along with marigolds and some other wildflowers. They're growing in a corner on the ground next to my porch in the front, and then in about, I think it's about 2 or 3 spots. Might be 3, but at least 2. Yeah, no, it is 3. I think 3 spots in my backyard. And they just keep, you could see there's like another bud ready to open. And they get pretty tall. They got like kind of a strange leaf too. But anyway, that's our beauty of nature idea. Let's not forget that we live on this planet and that there is other life on this planet. My chair's slipping down. This has become such a, it's so ridiculous. I got to do this stuff. This and then adjust the microphones so that's that. We'll come back to these things. I'm just giving you an introduction. And then this is an outdoors picture for the day, which I need to reduce a little bit. This is dedicated to the one. Anyway, this is something that, yeah, I once did a video that to basically, back when everybody was taught, when the flat earth thing was like really taking off on the internet, you know, when it was out of control. It was like people were talking about it and they were getting like 1 million plus views. So I actually did 2 videos, but I kind of rushed them together a little bit when I think about it. To basically explain to people, because I spent a better part of, I don't know, about 15 to 20 years ago, I used to work with polar explorers and people who went to the, you know, climbed like the Himalayas, went to the North Pole and the South Pole. And in one of my videos, I think I had a picture of this or an aerial view of the South Pole. This is actually the U.S. base at the South Pole. And these, like, I don't know, these morons, these kids, you know, like the people pushing the thing, there's nothing at the South Pole. See, one of the premises, you know, one of the bases of this flat earth theory was, and like even Joe Rogan, I think, saw my video and he didn't even get what I was trying to say, because he didn't understand the inception of the concept of the flat earth. He didn't know where those people were coming from. See, their idea was that they had, I broke it down to, you know, to basically, if I keep wheeling over these wires to my headphones, what's going to happen is it's going to crush the wire, short it out, and I won't have headphones. But I have to have a long wire, so I have the ability, if I want to go get ice, I could disconnect this thing. Anyway, let me finish this story. Like I said, I'm half awake, but, you know, it's interesting because this is part of, you know, I mean, I'm the king of pop culture, right? So, for those of you, everyone has heard about these idiots that believe in the flat earth, right? But they don't understand why they believe there's a flat earth. And so what I did in one of my videos, and I think I did it in a follow-up as well, is I took their bullet points. They didn't call them bullet points, but I took the main things that they were mentioning in their videos, and I broke them down like in bullet points. One by one, I disproved them. Things like why, well, if the Earth is spinning at 24,000 miles, you know, well, how come we're not, you know, flying off it, or we can't tell it? And I explained because coincidentally, there's, at the equator, it's like 24,000 miles or something like that. You know, I gotta get into all this stuff. Hold this data for such an absurd thing in my mind. But And this show isn't about the flat Earth, so stay tuned. I'm just trying to explain this picture. Is that actually because of the size of the planet, our rotation is similar to that of, because we have a 24-hour day, it clockwork-wise, it's similar to watching a minute hand on a clock. You ever look at a minute hand, not a second hand? The second hand you can see, the second hand goes like, you can see it moving. But the minute hand, if you stare at it, you can't really see it move. And that's why you can't sense the Earth spinning, right, on its invisible axis. And that was one of the points I made. But I did have a typo or something in the first one. I said like second hand, and I didn't feel like going back and re-editing a video because something so absurd as flat Earth was ridiculous. Then I mentioned that because, again, with the size of the Earth, these people said, well, you can't see the arc, that the Earth is actually round, right? Because if you look at the horizon, and some guy was trying to say, something on the horizon, if the Earth was really, rounded, an oblate spheroid. He didn't even know that word, but I mean, if the Earth was an oblate spheroid, you look such a distance, things should go down. And I demonstrated that how many miles of visibility, all right, that because of the size of the Earth, again, that standing somewhere, even in a very flat desert that goes for hundreds of miles, you have 100 miles visibility or something like that, that you're not going to see the curvature of the Earth is what the term is. And then I happened to pull out videos, and these people, they don't believe NASA because they also don't believe that we went to the moon, So I pulled out satellites. There are satellites like one, I think one was from Ecuador. There's various satellites that are actually have cameras pointing in live views of the Earth. And then, of course, you have NOAA weather satellites and things. And those things are in these, geosynchronous orbits or whatever. But they're going, and so you can actually see the curvature of the Earth because it's showing the cloud, it's going around the planet. Let me just take this out of the way so you can see my gesticulations. So it's actually going around the planet so you can see the curvature of the Earth from space. And there are multiple satellites from multiple countries, and all of these countries none of these are tied into NASA necessarily, and some of these countries aren't necessarily our so-called allies. So it's like they're in on the fix is in type of thing. And I even got into the point with the looking at, say, a satellite from Ecuador in real time going around the Earth. Compare that to a space station or to a NOAA image of weather, clouds, right? Demonstrating that at a specific time when this satellite was going around, another satellite or a picture from NOAA, weather-wise, the same cloud formation was there, in effect getting multiple confirmations that, yes, indeed, this is going around the planet. And that and the Earth is round, and, And then I showed this, and this was the one that really set people off. There's nothing at the South Pole. And people had no idea that the South Pole is just riddled with scientific bases. And that, there's science bases from all of these countries all over the place. And people fly there. There are ice planes that land there. And that the U.S., like always, has this massive base at the geographic, South Pole. And that's the building right there. And, they've got showers and dining halls and all kinds of stuff in there. It's interesting. It's a science place. And there's all kinds of buildings around that. I didn't, this isn't about that. But this is our outdoor picture, and I just thought I'd bring that up because you don't know what you don't know. And to demonstrate how the internet, I'm trying to get comfortable here, how the media and the internet is people under a certain age, but maybe even over, there may be people who are in their 80s that just simply don't have any what I call firsthand experience or firsthand knowledge, or have received the knowledge from someone directly. In my case, we were doing live webcasts from the South Pole and from the peninsula. We did a lot of live video casts over a number of years on various expeditions. And two of the individuals that I worked with both had records, as far as, getting to the South Pole, like walking to the South, being the first person to do this, the first person to do that sort of thing. And so I just thought I'd bring that up because it just following in the theme of this card, you don't know what you don't know. And the idea that people just don't get it. By the way, you don't know what you don't know. T-shirt is available at TonyCaravanLive.com. I've got one of those. It's the most comfortable shirt in the world. But yeah, so there are all kinds of things all over this planet that people are just simply unaware of. People doing all kinds of research, digging out ice cores. Some of the bases they have are actually dug down into the ice. And I've seen places, these places have full-blown medical labs, dental labs. The type of research that's going on in Antarctica is incredible. And, of course, there's been some, we could get into some other stuff on the eastern coast. There's they found an buried under like a mile of ice or ridiculous amount of ice, there was actually a lake. And there was a whole project, to go in and do that. And they did indeed do it, and there was some reporting done about it, but a lot of that was like hush, hush. So the question is, what really did they discover down there, So, I have to laugh at these people like this flat earth type people, or people don't believe about the moon, the moon landings and stuff, is they're asking the wrong questions. See, it's that you don't know what you don't know, but, this stuff is real. It's there. It's physically there. But what the questions you should be asking is, what exactly are they doing there? You see? That's it. Nobody ever asks. Occasionally you hear something, but I mean, there's an awful lot of bases on Antarctica. See, the people who believe, they thought that the Earth ended at the South Pole, and beyond that you fell off into nothingness. And I was trying to say, no. I know guys who hike to the South Pole, and there's an ice highway that goes in the other direction that goes all the way down, these bases like McMurdo, that go to the other side where they have other bases. So from all four sides of the continent of Antarctica, you could enter from any side. It's surrounded by water, and you could get there from Australia. You could get there from South Africa, which is out of control right now. And people cross the Drake Passage from southern tip of South America, and that's how they get to the peninsula. And most of the people I worked with took that particular trip. So, these are our photos of the day. So instead of a sunrise, we're going to just look at some nice zinnias yesterday. The sun wasn't out when I took this, but, the colors of those things. Nature, the beauty of nature surrounds us. They breathe CO2, by the way, that 0.004 CO2. That beauty is brought to us by that. And yes, the human brain, consciousness, genius, far beyond anything, because of the ability we have to, not only we have savants and geniuses, people with photographic memories, right? Total recall and all that stuff, and I touch on this often, but that we have this consciousness and creativity through that consciousness that combines these senses we have in this biological, electrobioelectric brain and this biological androidish body. And that makes us far superior to any machine today. See, remember when Google created an AI that was able to beat the best Go player, right? Which we used to call Chinese checkers when I was a kid. Really what it is. The concept of that other people, like I say, you don't know what you don't know, or everything you know is wrong. You don't think about it. And that's what this show's kind of just getting into. A lot of these things that people take for granted, they don't go further. It's like reporters. They never have follow-up questions. They ask something, they never follow up. Well, the follow-up on that was that, yeah, okay, this AI, beta human, right, playing Chinese checkers, basically. And what's to say that another human wouldn't come along and beat the AI? This was not a great accomplishment by a machine. All right? Because the best player already was a human. Right? It's like on Jeopardy when IBM, when they had an IBM, I think it was an IBM computer, bet the winner of Jeopardy, that year's Jeopardy, all-time winner or something like that. But the thing is, Jeopardy's been one of those TV shows that's been on for, I don't know, forever, probably 50 years. And there's always some winner, grand poobah winner of Jeopardy every year, right? The guy who beats everybody, right? But someone always manages to come along and beat that person. So the idea of a computer coming in, programmed, taking in all of this data, right? It's saying there's no data right now being broadcast. Okay, excellent connection. I don't know what's going on. It's like AI, the algorithm doesn't like hearing me criticize the failings of the machines. I'm just watching my stats on YouTube. That was pretty funny. It's like they almost may have cut that out for a split second. But the idea is, yeah, I'm talking to you, algorithm, right? You machine. You're never going to be as good as we are because we're far superior to you. Not only with our bioelectric brains, but because we have consciousness and creativity and you don't. You will never have a soul experience of life. You will never be able to understand this. Okay? All right? Anything you would do would emulate that, right? And so, yeah, like in this, it was Jeopardy or whatever show it was. I'm pretty sure it was Jeopardy. So another player is going to come along and, would beat this algorithm or this AI, right? And that's just how it is. And you could go on to anything you want to do that way. And in my book Codex back here, I have some discussions with an AI. And, it's like I said, I've spent a lot of time researching this. And unlike these engineers and these programmers, the coders, that are all caught up in this world, and I don't care, the MIT and, at Alphabet, Google, right, and even the DARPA people, it's like they're not thinking straight. You see? Because they have their own, they have tunnel vision. They don't see the big picture. They want a thing for a specific reason, right? Be it DARPA for some military purpose, or Google for a military purpose for DARPA, or MIT or Google or Alphabet for some sort of getting some kind of grant or some sort of monetary gain, or tie it into one of these Boston Dynamic robots or something. But ultimately, that would be serving the corporatocracy in a sense of, some kind of either, control or, control or money or making billions of dollars. And that's the thing. So, it's in a singular task. It's easy, to master something, right? But the beauty of humanity, and why I brought up Da Vinci, for example, is when they talk about a Renaissance man, and I don't pretend to put myself in the, category of Da Vinci, but I do. The concept of Renaissance man, I can relate to. Because I understand it's the idea of doing many things and being able to master many things. And these machines, they don't do that. In other words, they create a machine that's, they have a team who works on the project, right? And the goal is to beat Go, right? The goal is to make this robot that can do pirouettes, or like this DARPA contest they have now to make robots that could dig out these paranoid people from their ice caves during the next cataclysm, right? That could drill down into the ice and open the door and let these people out, who are basically going to already, be inside what I consider a lava tube, and they'll just be burned to a crisp. You don't know what I'm talking about, and that's why I had on the title card, you don't know what you don't know. You really don't. And so that's another way of looking at this concept of machine learning and its lack of creativity and its singular focus, right? And that it has to draw on, because of that, what's tied into that, it has to draw on existing knowledge. So encyclopedic knowledge, internet knowledge. Whereas a human being has creativity and can basically just create, right? An idea that's not born out of, having read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica, like my father actually did. He did read the entire encyclopedia. Over the course of his later life, he actually read Encyclopedia Britannica from cover to cover. Amazing. And that's a human accomplishment. And so robots do it too, AI. But the idea, the difference between a robot having that knowledge in its memory banks, to use like a old sci-fi word, a human not only has it in its memory banks, particularly a savant or somebody with total recall, photographic memory or something like that. But they have the ability to tie, to make certain correlations beyond the processing that a computer goes through. In other words, come up with something unique, creatively unique. You see? And that's why this whole concept of the technocracy, I never use that word technocracy. I just say we live in a corporatocracy. Because I don't even give these transhumanist people the time of day. Because it's folly. It's an exercise in futility. Humanity is the highest achievement, right, that we know of, right? And instead of us exploring and examining, how it's possible that a Da Vinci, an Einstein, various savants, photographic memory, people with total recall, can exist, Stephen Hawking even, in a wheelchair, handicapped, unable to speak verbally, can come up with concepts that no machine is capable of doing. All right? And it's the idea of it's beyond thinking machines, you see. And so, you don't know what you don't know. And everything you know is wrong. And they indoctrinate us. I think I did a good job the other day of explaining some of how limited when I was talking about time. Perhaps this caffeine will wake me up. I had a ginseng before that. A capsule that said it also had like royal jelly in it. But I mean, how could you, this is my whole thing is, that's another one. See, it's technology, the things they do. So you buy this pill, and vitamins, right? Supplements, whatever you want to call them. And so they create these capsules or a tablet, right? Pill, whatever you want to call it. Gel cap. And they have all these various things. And these, they fit right there in your hand. Your fingers, really. And you look at the ingredients on it, and it's got wild ginseng root, ginseng this, ginseng that, royal jelly, some other kind, and you're something extract, and you're like, yeah, all those things are great, but this is some like tiny capsule with some microscopic amount of these things, like if you want it, like it's like, you get more from just a spoonful of honey, pure honey, like raw honey, real honey too, not something the FDA claims is honey, that really contains fructose, whatever. One of these things that they're allowed to do. They could say pure, but they don't have to, but it could have high fructose corn syrup in it or something. But when I was talking about before, I was explaining like in education and why, and this ties into the Einstein idea. This is from a show. I'm not going to repeat. Look at the show that I talked about time, linear time. You could find that about a week ago, I think. And I was explaining that Einstein's theory of space-time, tying space and time together, was a cop-out. And that though you could, some mathematician, physicist could take a chalkboard or a whiteboard and scribble all kinds of formulas on there and say, see? And then present it to, some peer review organization, and it gets published in one of these journals, and people say, wow, and they accept it, and it becomes, for the time being, that's the latest theory, right? But the idea, all it is scribblings on a chalkboard. Because in the real world, like I said, when I was trying to explain with the concept of gravity, I said, you're talking about like a bowling ball on a trampoline. And so you're showing me illustrations and mathematical formulas that show this thing dipping down, but you're not explaining what happens on the other side of the bulge, you see? Or it's a two-dimensional drawing, that's trying to explain a three-dimensional or four-dimensional concept. And that's why he ultimately put space-time and called it space-time. Because he couldn't explain it in the fourth dimension. And we're programmed to just accept this stuff as children in the school systems. Like I say, we're raised by the nanny state. Everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know because you weren't taught it. And your teacher wasn't taught it. You go to school and you got a teacher who was taught something the same way. So if in the 1950s, this is what they were teaching something to somebody, or even the 1960s, say post lunar landing type of thing. So some teacher goes to college in the late 70s or even 80s and is now, and is still teaching and maybe has taught, 80s, that's 40 years, generation. I consider a generation like, reaching the age of like 21, reaching college age. So someone was taught wrong and then taught two generations, in other words, people reaching the age of college age, the things they were taught. So they believed it because that's, they don't know any better, that you don't know what you don't know. And so you accept these scribblings on a chalkboard to be fact. That's pretty crazy. It's a kind of heavy topic for 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. In the former United States, it's Monday, July 19th, in the calendar year 2021. For many of us, this is the future, but not necessarily the future we thought.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And wasn't that quite the introduction to the show? Yeah. I'm still half asleep. I'm still half asleep. I really don't want to go to this doctor's appointment. See, the idea, the thing about freedom is once you are free, it's like anything else, I guess, or most things. You can't get enough of it. And it's like I like my freedom. I like the ability of not having to be anywhere at a particular time. And so at this point, the only thing that I have to really do is is a checkup, a doctor's checkup, or something like that. And it's when you get used to just being your own man and doing whatever you want to do, to be free, truly free, that then when even though you have only a couple times a year you have an appointment for something, it's like it's a major intrusion, and you're like, I don't want to do that, but you do it. So I can't even imagine because being this free for 5-6 years now, that people who still have to literally get up. It's a Monday morning. Someone who actually physically is getting up and has to go to work, and they're tired and they've got to do that. I feel sorry for you. But like I said in yesterday's show, if you watch it, there's a way out. Times are changing. Things are changing fast and moving fast. And they really ought to think about scaling down your life and trying to be more free. Because your quality of life, your future quality of life may well depend upon your being not so dependent on being a wage slave of sorts. Because we're at that time in this fall of this civilization, this fall of the American empire, where living out the rest of your life until the collapse, and I guess the upcoming cataclysm, the inevitability of the 12,000-year cycle of this planet. Again, something that very few people, are going like, what's he talking about? Watch some of my other shows where I get into that more in depth. But it's a time when, when you really should focus on life and appreciate life. Appreciate your senses, the beauty around you. Did laundry, wash the white handkerchief. It's always clean. Not only cleans the cola off of the mustache, but helps to hide a belch. I'm trying to get some lower lombard support with my and get comfortable in general, which I'm really never comfortable on this chair. Never.
This is really funny. Really funny. What do you mean I'm funny? It's funny,
Yeah, I know.
Funky.
So, yeah, I shouldn't have gotten out of bed. But, I don't know. We already covered some interesting stuff. So, I'm into that. I still have this media source, don't I? Let's see here. I've got a curiosity. That's still there. Cancel. The CPU is running a little bit higher than normal this morning. I have the back window open. And when I touched that media thing, it shot way up into the high 7s. Even though it's kind of cool in here this morning. So, I don't know. I may have to regularly make sure I clean out that computer. Because we're about, we're averaging higher CPU usage than we have in the past several days since I accidentally opened a new tab. Since I made that correction. So, you don't know what you don't know. And where do we go from here? That's the big question. It's like moving forward, where do we go? And it's so strange for a guy like me, and I guess someone who might watch this show, the few people that do, or watch it for any. I realize that the long form video format is just not really for anybody. I mean, I find myself even as of late, as I get towards the end of the video, I'm realizing they're lengthy. But some topics, it just takes a while to get to work through it. And that's what a long form video is. And the other beauty of it is that in a world of sound bites and quick video clips and memes and 140 character tweets and posts and, everything just, and the attention span of a goldfish, the idea of dedicating a program and talking for 2 hours, an hour or two, and getting something in depth and allowing the free flow of consciousness is what this is in many cases, because it's unscripted. I basically pull together, I get an idea or decide, I guess, let's explore that you don't know what you don't know, because we haven't really gotten into that lately, specifically. And, and then grab a few, like I said, my incredible amount of library of images that are truly my own, in effect, mostly are just amazing. So, in the case of the daily image of Da Vinci, or of the flowers, that's Food and Guard daily image. I think I made that point across, and and it's like, I'm not going to belabor that. The idea is, look, we know that these people exist and have existed. Maybe you don't. Maybe you haven't seen documentaries about these savants who have total recall, of just vast amounts. In other words, comparable to any kind of AI that has access to cloud data, the internet or Wikipedia type of thing, right? These are people that can do the exact same thing and have total recall of it. And it's just like people who actually have photographic memories. And then there's Da Vinci's that are not only just geniuses, but like, again, are creating art, are coming up with ideas that had never been conceived before. And this is a human being, not a machine. So forget the Elon Musks, we're talking about, these people who talk about AI. Well, they're going to be able to do this and that, and they'll solve medical problems and cure this and cure that. It's like, it sounds like to me like the people in the 60s and said there'll be flying cars and moving sidewalks. It's like, no, there's never going to be flying cars, because there's 1.2 million car accidents a year, and that's on the ground. Could you imagine if these kind of morons were like flying around above us? You got to be kidding me. Moving sidewalks? Well, yeah, airports, we have these conveyor belt things. But it was like Da Vinci was like creating things like helicopters and submarines and different things that had never been conceived before. Right? And he didn't have the Wikipedia to draw on, right? He didn't go to MIT, right? Or some Ivy League school. This is just a man, a brilliant man, using his human brain. And so our indoctrination education system is basically primarily is used to keep us down, keep us from becoming Da Vinci's and Einstein's, et cetera, et cetera. and Hawking's and all the great. I mean, there's physicists out there that are. There's so many astrophysicists, physicists, particle physicists. Various scientists, people in all kinds of disciplines of study working in academia. Brilliant minds, great minds. That if unleashed, and if we're actually brought up, perhaps, not having had so much time wasted teaching them this, these accepted concepts, so that their minds were freer to think open thoughts. That, who knows? Maybe we wouldn't be in the pickle we're in now as a civilization. And that's why I always say that in previous times that there could well have been civilizations far more advanced than us that just didn't go the machine, silicon, technocracy route. And that's not like a Luddite statement. That's just the statement saying that, in other words, that you've got this processing unit, these android bodies, right? And so instead of focusing on this body living to be which should be living, we should all be living to be at least 120 years old. But instead of focusing on this body living maybe 160 years or more, right? Okay. And instead of focusing on this brain as a processing unit and saying, what we need more savants, more geniuses, more people with photographic memories, more Da Vinci's, Einsteins, etc. We've created this functionally illiterate society, right? The so-called dumbing down. Those are horrible words to say, but it's the truth. It's the truth. And so, so where are the Da Vinci's, right? And the Da Vinci's that are out there are basically, ignored. So like I say, I don't consider myself a Da Vinci, but I don't feel I've been given the chance, right? Society frowns upon somebody who writes 10 books, right? 50 songs, who has, multiple talents, does all these various different things. There's no interest in that. Instead, they want somebody who wants to, hey, look at me, I can sing and dance on the stage, right? Or I could criticize and poke fun at people on a network television late night show, right? I'm a star, right? I could talk politics and get paid on TV as an announcer and get paid $20 million a year. You see the way all of our money, time, and focus is wasted on meaningless tasks and people that are basically functionally illiterate, doing silly human tricks, right? Instead of focusing on brilliance, creativity, right? And the potential of the human being. And so by not focusing on that, we end up with things like this. And that is, let me just bring this up. CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, okay? Suicide rising across the U.S., more than a mental concern. More than half the people who died by suicide did not have a known mental condition. Okay? People are killing themselves. Right? This is insane. Right?
This is insane. This is insane. This is insane.
And so that's what we end up with. And, you know, these statistics, you know, 45,000 lives lost to suicide in 2016. Suicide rate went up more than 30% in half of the states since 1999. All right. These are older statistics. You know, more recent statistics show these numbers have risen. I've seen, you know, 47,000, you know, and then I've heard talk of over 50,000. You know, I think currently it's like some 50,000 people. Every time you go, you know, it's like, because they don't like to publish this. You know, it's really hard digging through some of these sites, but this is a .gov CDC site that's considered, you know, this isn't me making something up. This is a screen capture of an actual site that is considered one of the sources, right? And so that's a lot of people that find life so unbearable that they decide that they no longer want to continue living. So this is not a high civilization when you're losing 50,000 people or more a year to suicide. And, you know, and this isn't like, you know, they don't include, this isn't like drug overdose and stuff like that, unless the drug overdose was specifically for suicide. No, this is people who actually just, you know, premeditatively have decided that they're going to end their life. Now, that's a problem. But that's no different than those other numbers that I've brought up from time to time showing like heart disease and things like that, that basically are lifestyle changes, or that things that the FDA, another government agency, could clearly not allow certain products on the market, and that these people would not be consuming them, and then in effect suffering from diabetes, type 2 diabetes, obesity, you know, and all sorts of other things leading to heart attacks and strokes and stuff like that. I mean, millions of Americans are dying every year, but all we've heard over the last year or so are those little numbers in the corner of the screens of the network TV that apparently Big Pharma is making billions of dollars on right now. So are we too much of a money-oriented society? You know, that's why I say it's a corporatocracy. But who pays the price? We, the people. Right? We're losing our family members. We're losing our friends. We're losing our neighbors to things that we should not be losing them to. And again, it's that singular focus, right? Tunnel vision. What's the problem of the day? And it's all over the news, you know, the unspeakable thing. But should be on the news. See, the thing is that when things come along and, you know, and they're bad and they, you know, illnesses, you know, that's bad. You know, that's something you take seriously, and you do whatever your doctor tells you to do. You know, you seek medical advice. But what bothers me are these recurring things. You see, not something that comes in and happens and is around for a year and a half or two, and then, you know, then fades into the background. Okay. And these other things don't fade into the background. In other words, heart disease, heart-related disease is still a leading cause of death in the U.S. So every year it's killing 650,000 or more people. Cancer every year is taking 600,000 lives, right? So in 10 years, cancer's killing 6 million people, Americans, that is. All right, 6 million. And that's only a decade. But this is not the focus. The focus instead is on something, the unspeakable thing at the current time. So that's what I'm saying. You don't know what you don't know, and you're not going to know it because the media, and like I say, the media is the all-encompassing media now, right? Everything. What you see in social media, what you see on TV, what you hear on radio, what you read in newspapers, and what you see on websites now that claim to be some sort of, expert in something or, whatever they are, fact checkers or something. And so the full story, you don't know what you don't know because you don't see the big picture. And that's in any kind of problem solving, that's another thing that's lacking, in society and civilization, and why I call it the former United States. And I tried, several years ago, I was trying to push a concept. It was called, it was an idea of putting together great minds to look at the big picture to solve big problems. Okay. I even wrote a song about it. I don't know if I have it here or not. Let's see. The big questions, I'm asking the big questions, like, how did all this begin? How long can humans really live? Like I say, you can ask your voice assistant, play the music of Tony Caravan, and you can listen for a couple of hours of my songs. But, people aren't asking the big questions. And in some cases, they're not allowed to ask the big questions. And when people start trying to talk about solutions and possible answers to the big questions, then they are silenced. But forget about the big questions. What about the big picture? To see something, all-encompassing. And that's how you solve problems. That's why, even in law enforcement, they'll make wall charts, and post things and tie things together and try to, in order to figure things out so you could look at everything at a glance. That's the failing of these devices. Because what happens is everything is a separate individual app. Now think about that. And so you never can really see the big picture on a small screen. You can't even really see a picture. It's hard to find a picture on even the big screen. Technically. But we're not trying. That's the thing. But we have problems that need to be solved. but everybody's just singularly focused on whatever their thing is. It's like your attention span. And then you're being led down a path because you don't know what you don't know, right? They have to tell you a thing in order for you to know it, right? I mean, it sounds so, simplistic and ridiculous, I guess, to someone. But yeah, that's why I've made that shirt. That was its whole idea. You don't know what you don't know. I mean, you have to really contemplate that and understand that if you're into what I'm saying, wearing that and letting other people see that and look at it and go like, and repeat it in your mind. You don't know what you don't know. What's he trying? You don't know what you don't know. What exactly are you trying to say? And the idea is that to wake people up to that concept of opening up your mind and seeing the big picture and looking at things beyond a singular app, right? Or a singular focus, the pop culture, politics is a pop culture, or this cult of personality, someone riding in on a white horse to save the day, or Build Back Better, or Save America, or The Great Reset, right? Slogans, buzzwords, phrases. And it's like, no, what's the big picture? Like I always say, well, how about the 3-year-old child? Well, why? Why? They don't want that childhood innocence of someone saying why. Right? I don't know. Something's going on with my connection. They don't like me talking about this stuff. I'm not broadcasting. I just froze up right now for some reason. You're missing this. Now suddenly I have an excellent connection. You just missed something because I froze up. But my CPU is operating properly and I'm broadcasting 30 frames per second. But I'm getting like kilobytes per second going to YouTube is not receiving the data. They are so against this kind of talk. I don't believe it. Well, I haven't said this in a while, but for those of you who are able to bear with me, there's no reason whatsoever why there should be a problem with this webcast right now. Now suddenly I've got an excellent connection. Well, if you missed it, I was talking about why. Asking the question why, like a child. And then, the YouTube fairies or whatever they are, algorithmic, or the monitors, some midnight monitor, didn't want to hear that because they have cognitive dissonance towards this sort of thing. Like I say, it knocks the wind out of your sails sometimes, but like in Rudyard Kipling's poem, you just have the will to, to go on, or however he said it. Better than I did. But yeah, before that happened, I don't know if this is repetitive or not because I was watching my diagnostics on the left freeze up for about, I don't know, a minute or two. I was talking about the child, how they try to erase the idea of us asking why about things, and how there's a singular focus of an app or of media to focus on an issue and not let us see the big picture, because that's really what it's all about, the big picture. And the only way you'll solve any of the issues of the day is to be able to see the big picture. And that's why I was talking about like in getting no data again. They do not want me to tell you this. This is insane. Excellent. This is obviously, there's something going on here. Why they're so afraid of this idea, because this goes against everything, that they don't even want people to understand this. You have to look at the big picture. You have to see life in its totality, not be focused on a singular thing at a singular time. The media, all-encompassing media, is not the answer. Has nothing to do with your life. It's like this show. This show does not deal with politics as pop culture, or the cult of personality, because they are meaningless. Because when you live in a corporatocracy that basically has puppeteers from an organized crime syndicate above it, there's no need to talk about it. Arguing about left, right, red, blue is an exercise in futility. People who work for the government are meaningless people. They have no effect on your life. We've just seen that yesterday's show. Watch yesterday's show. Yesterday's show, I explained exactly the first move of the Great Reset is already in place. They basically brought back a welfare state. And so you're better off to be, they're not going to raise children out of poverty because the money's not going to the children, because the children living in poverty already have everything they need. You see? They already have free food, free health care, free housing, free daycare. All right? And the society we live in right now, if you're a certain economic or even minority status, you have advantage over someone else from a higher standpoint. I mean, the real enemies of the state have always been the ruling elite, the corporatocracy, right? And their propaganda wing, the media, and of course the indoctrination education system, right? The people indoctrinating, conditioning, and propagandizing. People refuse to see the big picture of that and understand. And the idea of quelling a broadcast like this, is insane, right?
This is insane.
But that's the world we live in today. And it's not funny. I'm smiling, but I mean, what am I supposed to do? You're a victim of these people. I don't make any money on this. Right? I'm not monetized. Say that every day. People don't believe it? Right? Well, it's the truth. But I saw a commercial. Well, I didn't make anything on it. I'm surprised anybody want to advertise on a show, like a show that tells the truth, that doesn't deceive people or lie or play games or propagandize. It just gives you the firsthand knowledge, right? Yeah, the whole concept of truth and beauty is lacking from the world, Flowers. Things that people don't know exist. Right? The fact that people are just killing themselves. It's a horrible thing. Society should be focused on that. Saving lives. Right? You don't know what you don't know. Instead of caught up in a fantasy world. And I'm sorry to say for most people, that, yeah, that. It's my focus, my singular focus, my electric eye, It's crazy. Yeah, so that just set me back a little bit, mentally. It's unsettling when you see a thing happen that technologically should not have happened, but that was actually done intentionally by somebody on the other end. All right, because you don't see it, but I've shown it to you in the past that there's a dashboard that have settings, analytics, stream health, CPU usage, frames per second, kilobytes per second, dropped frames, countdown of the live. In other words, this is like a NASA, control center. The way this computer's set up right now. I could see what's going over the air. I could see myself live, as I speak. But then I can see, there's a time delay. I mean, it's pretty fascinating. I'm using some open source software that gives me the ability to do things that other people can't do, or they have to spend a fortune to do. And so I know what's going on. They can't hide that from me. Not to mention I've been involved in the internet for forever. Right? I've been doing this, working with computers for literally most of my life. Going back into the early 80s. It's the truth. I gave a report to a university that I was on, a student government. I was a president of a major university, student government president of a major university on one semester. And, of course, a representative, too. And I gave a report to and I think about it, I was to these kids. It was so ridiculous. But I printed up all these copies and gave it and presented it at this meeting, and it was about, this is in the early 80s. And I was talking about the Open University and how computers were going to be a part of college education and the future of the university system. And it was funny in the way people looked at me. Well, this is very interesting, Tony, and I guess we'll have to take a look at it, It was like my farewell thing, because when I was leaving, and I left this with these people. Who knows? It may have been the groundwork. Someone may have become a billionaire because of that paper, that I made and I distributed at at one of these a big meeting. I don't even think I have a copy of it anymore. It's lost. Well, another thing lost posterity. But yeah, I've been around this for a long time. I've been talking about this. There's nothing new under the sun, as they say, for when it comes to computing and me. I had a cell phone in the 90s, early 90s. So, yeah, I guess that's that. That's the concept. That's what I wanted to get across today. I just wanted to basically reinforce this idea that I bring up often of you don't know what you don't know, and that we need to focus on that more. And by focusing on it, that means you might start to think, like they say, outside the box, which is, I'm not crazy about that phrase, but you might start looking and trying to see the big picture, which is a better way of putting it. And stop allowing yourself to just be manipulated by the media or education system or both. And when I say media, again, I mean all media, including this forum, anything coming over the internet, the airwaves, cable, satellite, print, newspapers, radio, whatever. And realize that these people are in business to make money. They're selling commercials. Like I've said, I haven't said it in many weeks, but they're selling cars and used cars and pharmaceuticals. And then commercials by law firms that are basically telling you if you took that pharmaceutical, there's money, contact the law firm of blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're in just in the business. They're selling commercials. That's what they're doing. They're hawking ads. And these announcers, depending on if they're national or local, the national, announcers, they make $20 million a year salaries. It's all about money. And the owners of these media companies are billionaires. And so the country's become a corporatocracy. It's not a representative government. All right? That's all just that's showbiz. They're just putting that up, in front of your face, and people are just buying it. You don't know what you don't know, because why would you? See, it's not your fault. It just there aren't many people like me out there telling you this. They're saying, oh, we can build back better. We can save America. The Great Reset will make things, usher in utopia. Slogans. Right? No. Look at the big picture. Look at history. Look at the great minds that have come before us. The great minds that are around us now. The human creativity, the consciousness, right? Not the bioelectric brain, but consciousness. The potential for a human being, what a human can achieve, way beyond AI or any kind of machine learning thing, algorithms. The concept of advanced civilization and humanity and advanced lifespans. You know? Healing, self-healing, you know. I mean, the human body is designed that way. You know? It has an immune system and stuff. I mean, there's so many things that just people don't talk about. And people can't grasp, or they do grasp it for a moment and then they're diverted. And it's crazy. You know, they don't see it. So look out for yourself. You know, that's the whole thing. You know, decide on your quality of life and strive to achieve it. And don't allow yourself to have tunnel vision and go with the flow with whatever the pop culture of politics and the media is trying to force on you during one day. Because you don't know what you don't know. I mean, that's just reality. So find out things, explore, look at the big picture, get your life in order. You know, otherwise, you know, things are happening at a very fast clip right now. You know, civilization is like, it's, you know, civilization as we have come to know it is falling apart at the seams. Western civilization is practically fallen. You know, the U.S., I refer to it as a former U.S. And people like just look at that and listen to me and they're like, that guy's crazy. He don't, you know. It's like, you don't understand. I am so tired of getting emails from Save America and Our Revolution and One and Build Back Better and the whole lot of them. You know, the whole lot of them. Forget politics. Politics. It's meaningless. They're going to do, the corporatocracy is going to do what the corporatocracy wants to do. It's the way it is. You know, it's the same thing. You know, the ruling elite do whatever they want to do. You don't have a choice in the matter. Your only choice is to remove yourself as much as possible from their influence. And that means trying to live free. And living free today means living within your means so that you're not under the thumb of the corporatocracy. Because if you're under the thumb of the corporatocracy, that's their power over you. That's how they control you. And you need to get out from under the thumb of the corporatocracy, because the corporatocracy is just a collection of former nations that are having their strings pulled by an organized crime syndicate that meets in Davos every year and is referred to as the World Economic Forum. Right? That just implemented the first stage of their Great Reset when they passed this, what they called the child tax credit, which is so funny. Watch yesterday's show. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the transfer of wealth and the destruction of the working class and middle class. It's basically the stamping out of the working class simultaneously while they're destroying all jobs. You know, and the point is, and it's their attempt at this guaranteed income, but the income is so low that it's not even enough for the average person. They're not going to lift anybody out of poverty because it's not even enough to pay the rent in most cities. So how's a person going to be lifted out of poverty? No, it's going to create a poverty state, a totalitarian state. And that's what they want, this global authoritarian, rule. And they want everyone to just be at a poverty level. And part of this payments that went out already are to prevent what's happened in South Africa from happening here. Because there's revolution in the air all around the world. People, and it's not getting coverage here in the States. It's not getting coverage. And if it is getting coverage, it's being spun and edited to a point of where people don't see the big picture. I've seen the raw footage. All right. I've heard from people on location. It's bad. The world is erupting right now. Okay? In countries all over. And the U.S. is trying to pacify the poor right now by giving them some money, which goes to the parents. It doesn't go to the children. You don't give a 3 or 4 year old a $400 check, right? Especially since that child already has free food, free daycare, free health care, and a roof over their head. You see? And other benefits. No, you're giving cash to the parent so the parent doesn't do what they're doing in South Africa right now. And that means going out on the streets and basically tearing down society. The capital has basically become a fortress because of what's happening in other parts of the world that people haven't seen. The U.S. is already becoming a totalitarian, militaristic police state. It's crazy. I'm surprised that so many people have, are willing to join, join that side, so to speak. That's why I'm glad I'm removed from politics altogether, and I'm just not at that level where I have to be and worry about it. So in effect, like I said yesterday at the end of my show, I'm just as well glad that they're doing those handouts for these payments to these people. Because that means my neighborhood, the poorer neighborhoods, are less likely to erupt. In fact, in the short term, I guess it's going to be Party City. They just sent out a check for $432 to people. Well, it's cash. As they say, it's cash money. They already got food. Right? They already got EBT, so they got food. They already have a house or an apartment, Section 8 housing or whatever. They already have free health care. They already have daycare. So you just send them more. You send out cash. And they're going to start sending out $250 to $300 per child per month. Right? So who loses out on that? Well, the person that works, If you're a single mom and you have 2 kids, all right, you're talking about $7,200 cash you're a fool to work as a waitress or some kind of service worker at some kind of menial task, or a clerk, or work at a grocery store or a fast food joint or something like that. Because if you're at below the poverty level, you'll get 100% free health care. You'll get daycare for those children, though you'll be home, but you can, if you don't, you want to get a break, they could send them to daycare for free. You'll get housing allowance or Section 8 housing. Excuse me. And you get free food. So on top of that, you get, and you get discounted internet. You get a free cell phone, right? And I mean, people live by their cell phones. Discounted cable TV. There's a thing right now they have for that. And so, and internet, discounted internet is what I was saying. There's a program, I just got it. I was paying $98 to $100, and it was just cut in half this past month. Right? Because I was below the poverty line. And so I don't have any kids, so I'm not going to be getting that $7,600 a year or whatever, $7,200 a year if you have 2 kids. But like I say, some waitress that's got 2 kids, single mom, why go to work? All your bill, you'll have cash. You could, you eat. You got a roof over your head. Health care if you need it. Daycare if you need it. Right? And basically money. And, some people have 3 kids. That's like almost $1,000 a month. On top of all those other things that the average person has to pay. Because, most people have, the bills are their rent, their food, right? And their health care and stuff like that. Well, that's all covered if you're under the poverty level. And so now they're giving people at the poverty level like anywhere from, a few hundred to like $1,000 or more, depending on how many kids they have. So it's like, that's it. This is the big transfer of wealth. And I know it's a continuation of yesterday's, but I just, watch yesterday's video, and because I really get into it more specifically. And, these are the times we live in. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And they're not going to tell you that on the media. And people just don't deal with this stuff. So anyway, I should have never done this show this early, man. It's crazy. It's 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think it's time for me to go, Good morning. Anyway, check out my website. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I got this doctor's appointment, so I got to deal with that and all that stuff. So visit TonyCaravanLive.com. Get that shirt. You don't know what you don't know. It's on the title card. Or check out GreatSolarStuff.com. There's all kinds of weird stuff coming down the pike. Get yourself